Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was the Prime Minister speaking and giving an address to the nation ahead of the mega GST booster. That mega GST exercise kicks off tomorrow. The Prime Minister gave a big pitch for consumption and manufacturing. He said that neo-middle class gets a bonanza, and this perhaps is the biggest phase of tax reform since independence, since 99% of the products and services in the country will now be under the ambit of 5% GST tax. And in fact, he also stated that if we combine income tax and GST relaxations, people will save 2,50,000 crores. That's essentially the figure that the Prime Minister gave out when making that pitch for GST. Remember, that exercise kicks off tomorrow. Meanwhile, the other big takeaway as far as his address was concerned, well, the Prime Minister once again gave the pitch for self-reliance, and a push was also given by him for Swadeshi goods. And this comes amidst geopolitical reset. We are hearing of protectionist policies by the U.S. administration, how U.S. is pushing for MAGA, making America great again. And that has really thrown the global geopolitical order in a turmoil, global trade in a turmoil. In fact, the Prime Minister, while speaking about a push for Swadeshi, he said that the responsibility is also on MSMEs. He said that we need to give a push to indigenous production and manufacturing. So that's essentially what the Prime Minister said, and we are flashing some of the key takeaways from what the Prime Minister said just a short while back when he was making that pitch in an address to the nation today. In fact, joining us now to decode the Prime Minister's speech is Mohan Guruswamy. He's an expert commentator and writer on politics, economy and security. He's also a distinguished visiting fellow. Thank you very much for taking the time out, Mr. Guruswamy. First things first, the Prime Minister once again gave a pitch for self-reliance and manufacturing in India for the world. This, remember, comes in at a time when the United States continues its push for protectionist policies. Your first thoughts?
First question I have is, why didn't they do it 10 years ago? For 10 years, the country's economic policies have been drifting without any goal. GST was high ever since it was introduced, 2016. Those rates were there. They didn't tamper with it. They didn't.
We'll talk about that point. We'll talk about that point, sir, but let's focus on what the Prime Minister stated today.
The Prime Minister had, frankly speaking, he had nothing to say except exhortation that we must buy Indian, made in India. That was there always. But why didn't you do anything about it? Imports were coming in. The tariff structure was the same as before. We had trade imbalances with China. You didn't allow foreign FDI started tapering off, and then you didn't have more production in India. The Chinese had trade surpluses. Why didn't you allow them to set up, invest that money here? You said they can't invest. So they were taking the surpluses and going. So it's when the shock hits you, the American shock hits you, you wake up. And we spent so much of time chasing after Quad and doing all kinds of things when we should have been focused on the economy and our own self-interest.